Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 50 Shades of Tay. I'm Taylor Gonzalez, and my guest today is the animation supervisor on the adorable Nickelodeon series, The Tiny Chef Show, and has worked on so many projects, including Robot Chicken, Adventure Time, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I'm so excited to welcome Michael Granberry. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Taylor.
Oh, well, thank you for being here. This is so exciting. I love your whole setup in your office right now. It's so cool to see all
Thanks.
your awards and all the artwork and everything. Love it.
I love yours as well. You have characters that I've animated sitting behind you.
Yep, I made sure they were out. There's Pinocchio
Yeah.
and Lumpy Space Princess.
Yes, some of my favorites.
Lumpy Space Princess is one of my favorite characters of all time.
Oh my gosh, mine too. It's just crazy. I was so happy when I got to work on the stop motion Adventure Time episode that we did, and most of my scenes involved her. And it was, just she's just such a. I identify with that sense of just pent up, frustration and rage working in stop motion. You feel it often, and it was really funny. We had one day when the team from Cartoon Network came to visit and to look at all the sets. And these people have been working on the show for several seasons. And just walking in for them and seeing all the characters that they were so used to seeing in 2D in three dimensions, people were crying. They were
Oh,
so just absolutely delighted. And that was so nice to see. And then after the main group of people came in, uh, Pendleton Ward came in by himself afterwards, just behind the rest of the group, and came onto my stage where I was animating Lumpy Space Princess, and she was kind of sweating a little bit, and I was using this clear gel that we use, and
mhm.
in his own voice, which is her voice, he's like, what is that? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I showed it to him. He's like, can I have some? And so I like
Oh,
gave him a big glob of it. He just kind of walked out, just like playing with his stuff. And I was like, that was the best moment I could ever have asked for to
so
meet the
cool.
voice while I'm animating it and give him some slime to take with him.
Oh, what a cool story. Yeah, I love Adventure Time. It's such a special series. So that's incredible that you got to work on it. And I just thought the
Yeah.
episode you did was adorable. And yeah, like you said, it's crazy to see these characters that we've seen for years in 2D to see them in 3D. So I can't even imagine being someone who works on that show to get to see this different version of these characters that you're so used to.
Oh,
Such a cool
yeah. Yeah.
experience.
It was very emotional for everybody. It was great.
Well, I did want to start off by saying congratulations. The Annie Awards were the other night, and Tiny Chef Show took home an award. So congratulations on that.
Thank
Very
you so
exciting.
much. Yes, we love that show. What a great boss the Tiny Chef is. I mean, lots of opinions, lots of ideas, lots of contradictions, lots of mind changing. But when it all comes together, it's really fun. And the episode that we were nominated for and that we won for was a Halloween special. And
Oh,
of
so
course,
cool.
we all love working on Halloween stuff. So getting to do something that was not scary because it's a preschool show, but scary for the tiny chef is terrified of everything. So him in his own Halloween special, just screaming his head off. People who saw it were like, "Boy, that is a lot of screaming."
Oh, that's so cool, though. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, thank you.
Mhm. So you have worked on so many different projects that I love, like Pinocchio, like we mentioned, Robot Chicken, all these things. Um, Is there anything out there that has not been done in stop motion, whether it's a movie or a series that you love that you would like to turn into stop motion?
Oh my gosh, what a question! There always seems to be things that are like good ideas and then you start to put them on paper and be like, oh my gosh, this would be so expensive. Because we do still have to you know build everything. Everything on screen is made down to like blades of grass, and just and it just can really get down to the molecular level. I um i'm a big fan of i'm a big fan of horror. I mean, I kind of like really fell in love with movies like from horror movies, which I was too scared to watch when I was little. But when I got older and I could get through the scary parts, I was like, oh, this is for me. And I'm really hoping that, some point there could be like, some horror features. Like, some people may argue that Pinocchio was a horror movie, and it certainly had aspects of that. It had some incredible Guillermo del Toro nightmare designs, of some of the creatures in that film that made me so happy to see. But I am really sort of like fingers crossed for like a straight on, feature length horror film. And there's a lot of fun projects out there. I've done several horror themed short films that I would be so excited for the chance to like, flesh them out and do them in a feature film. But it's a big commitment to make a feature film in stop motion. But that is absolutely something I would sign on for in a heartbeat.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds incredible. Horror is my favorite genre, so I would love to see a full feature-length horror film, especially like a slasher film, like a Scream or a Friday the 13th in and stop motion animation would
Yes.
be just amazing for me. Do you?
Yes, I'm sorry, a friend of mine like suggested, what if we did, because it's in the public domain, like a shot for shot remake of the original Night of the Living Dead?
Oh
And
wow.
like asked me like, could you like figure out sort of what that would be? And
Mhm,
it's like it seems like a small film, but I'm like, if you're talking shot by shot,
mhm.
and all of those zombies and stuff, I'm like, no, this would be this would be the end of all of us if we tried to do this.
Oh my
So
gosh. No, but that
kill
would
it.
be incredible to see.
Wouldn't it be
Yeah.
something?
Someone's got
Yeah.
to do it, and I feel like you're the right person to do it. That'd be so
Hey.
fun.
I'll just, boy, if we could get the funding for it, I would just
Yeah.
like fasten my seat belts and be in for the ride.
Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome. Do you have a favorite stop motion movie or series?
Gosh, a favorite one. My gosh. I think I can sit and watch Coraline anytime. I mean, I've seen it so many times, but I love the story. I love the design work of Coraline. It's like it's such a gateway horror film for young people, It just sort of introducing scary stuff, but in a way that's not too terrifying. It was the reason I really was I mean, I was excited to work with the director Henry Selick on the film Wendell and Wild, um, because of all of his work. But Coraline is just one I can sit and watch. If you turned it on right now, I would sit here with you and watch it, and we could
Yeah.
just point out all of our favorite parts. And of course, now, having been in stop motion for a while, I know all of the people who animated on it. And so when I see
Oh,
a
cool.
sequence come up, I'm like thinking of, my friends who worked on that film. And I was not at that level at the time where I would have been considered, but I've since worked with them, and now they're my best friends. So it's
Oh,
it's
that's
got a little
awesome.
bit of it's got a place in my heart too.
Oh, that's such a cool story. No, I love that movie too. I don't know
Mm,
what I would pick if I had to pick one. Maybe Nightmare Before Christmas, just because I grew up with that movie and I watch it every
yes.
year, and it's just like it has so many special memories for me. So I feel like if I had to pick one, that's what I would pick.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And when I was working on Wendell and Wild, when I was the first animator who was hired to come in and just do some effects testing just before it was actually greenlit. And so the night before I went in my first day, I rewatched all of his films. And Nightmare Before Christmas is actually the one that was closest to the style of Wendell and Wild, just in the character designs and the way that they were working. So I kept going back to it, and
Yeah.
still I would see things like for the first time and think like, wait, what is that little character in the corner down there doing?
Hmm.
Who is that? It's like, oh my gosh. So it bears repeat viewing, and I like films that make you want to go back and you know look in the corners for the things that weren't the focal point, and
Hmm.
you'll always find something delightful.
Yeah, no, totally agree. So I'm curious, how did you get your start as an animator?
My start was actually pretty young. My father took me when I was 8 years old to go see a re-release of the Ray Harryhausen classic film Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, which he had seen when he was a kid. And I think he saw some similarities in me and him at that age. And it was such an interesting thing because it was a school night. We never did anything on a school night. And my dad just took me. He didn't take my siblings, and my mom stayed at home to see this movie. And I didn't know what we were going to see. And just within, 10 minutes, there's giant cyclops coming out, and there's giant two-headed birds and people sword fighting skeletons and dragons. My head just exploded. And so he explained to me how it was done. And when I was a little bit older, they agreed to buy me a movie camera, a little Super 8 camera, and I started making Super 8 films. And I did that until I was about 14, and then CGI came along.
Mm.
And everybody in the industry magazines I was reading were saying stop motion is dead. It's all going to be computers now. Goodbye, stop motion. And that was the truth as far as I knew it. And so it was about 20 years later and multiple careers that computers, which had killed stop motion, wound up bringing it back. People figured out how to take digital frames and play them in a sequence. And so I got some software like late 2004. And I started just doing little tests with some clay characters, and it was just like a damn burst in my head. That 14-year-old kid just came charging out, like, this is it. I've got to do this. I don't care, what it takes. And I
Mhm.
just threw myself into it, and I started making films. And I had some really good luck. I made a little short clay animated film that was seen by a producer who said, I think we could do something with this. And so we repackaged it and pitched it as a show. He had a lot of industry contacts. He sold it as a web series. The film cost about $6 to make, and we did like 8 episodes of a web series for 10,000 each. So I mean, I was making like 80 grand off of this little 5-minute short film that was not very good.
Oh my gosh.
But I just kept sort of like, like anyone who would pay me a nickel,
Right.
like I was doing like music videos and just anything, until I sort of got to a point where I had enough work that I could go to Robot Chicken, which was being animated 7 blocks from my apartment in
Wow.
Hollywood. I
So
couldn't
cool.
believe it. I know. And I got an internship on that show on season 3, and then I wound up getting hired on season 5. And it was just this. The universe just kind of kept dropping enough work to keep me from being homeless until I was able to sort of reach a level where I was getting hired consistently. And coming into this, I was 36, when I got my first like studio job, which is way late compared to most of the people coming in right out of art school.
Yeah.
And yet, had I gotten into animation at that age, I think I would have been technically a much better animator much earlier, but I wouldn't have appreciated it nearly as much. As it's like I had to take this really circuitous path to get to where I wanted to get. And I did just about everything wrong to get there because I had no clue what I was doing. And yet I appreciate it every day. I think about how lucky I am because so many people never get that chance. And
Mhm.
so anytime I see people that I feel like, oh, you're where I was, it's like I'm going to do whatever I can to be a resource, to help you find the door. A lot of people don't have problem going through the door, they just need to know where it is.
Right. Yeah,
But
no, I totally agree.
that was my, it was kind of a long way to get into it, but it just worked out. It just worked out so well, and I'm so glad I got it when I got it, because that's
Mhm.
when I was meant to get
Yeah, no, very true. Ah, so cool.
it.
So for Tiny Chef Show, we have to talk about this show. For people who haven't
Sure.
seen it yet and don't know what we're talking about, how would you describe the series?
Tiny Chef is a 6-inch tall, a green vegan chef who is a very creative, emotional character who lives for his passions and for his friends. And he deals with the learning to deal with the limitations of his expectations not quite meeting up with reality. So
Hmm.
he's always on a growth journey while he's also teaching kids how to cook delicious vegan meals. And it's all done in stop motion. It's all incredibly charming. And part of the fun of it is seeing, how this little character exists in our world, because he is, as far as we're concerned, a real character. Like, he could come into your office right now and start, jabbering at you, and it would just be a normal day.
Yeah.
He started on Instagram and developed a following on there. Kristen Bell was one of the people who was a big fan of it, and reached out to the creator and said, "I think we could do something with this," and it became a show on Nickelodeon that we won the Annie Award a couple of nights ago. We are nominated for 3 Emmys for this season coming up. So it's there's a lot of love around it. He's hilarious, but he's also relatable because his he's not always perfect.
Oh.
He's sort of perfectly imperfect, and is always sort of growing emotionally, as we all hope to.
Yeah, very true. Do you have a favorite episode that you got to animate?
Oh my gosh. I have to say I really liked the Halloween episode that we won the Annie Award for, because it was sort of the culmination of everything that we did. The episodes usually are about 11 minutes long,
Mm.
but this one was a double size. It was a 22 minute episode. And we, again, because I'm a horror fanatic, it's like there were just, it's very much a kid show, but there's jokes in there that kids are never going to get, that are squarely aimed at people in our demographic. There's a spot on Shining reference that every fan of The Shining will just howl at because it's so funny. There's just these little moments where you just sort of scratch your head and it's like, wait, what was that?
Ah, so
But
cool.
it's, yeah, I always tell people who, we get a lot of people who come in on different, from different kinds of shows, and I say, if you're on a kid show, just pray that you're on a weird one,
Yeah.
because it's the weird shows are the ones that keep your brain the most engaged. I
Mhm.
think, and Tiny Chef has got weirdness down.
Oh my gosh. Well, since you work on this show, I have to ask, are you a good chef yourself?
Of the things that I can make, I think I'm pretty good. I realized at some point that I was a very bad chef, and
Oh
so
no.
I started, just trying to focus a little bit more about, like making stuff that was quite good. So I do have some dishes. I really like tacos. I mean, I
Ooh, all
just,
right.
I decided this is a food I really like. I'm going to learn how to make it really well. And so I do like try to do that. Breakfast foods are something I really am good at. I'm not a good baker. I
Okay.
think there's too much measuring involved. I like things
Yeah.
that are kind of more like jazz. You can just kind of go in and throw all the ingredients around and, do whatever you're feeling.
Hmm.
So yes, and Tiny Chef has definitely gotten me more interested in, like plant-based foods, things like that. And I like them.
Oh, very nice. I only know how to make one thing, and it's lemon salmon with cauliflower, and that's it. That's all I know how to make.
Oh, that sounds so perfect, though.
I haven't made it in a long time, and I need to get better at it because like I was making it, I would say maybe like once a month, and then I went like a year without making it. I remade it
Mm.
maybe a few months ago, and I had forgotten everything. So it's like
Oh man.
I need to get better at it, and then once I've perfected that, then I'll move on to something more advanced. But I feel like you, I don't like measuring stuff. I always go, oh, just
Yeah,
eyeball it, and then I just like throw a little bit of this and dump a little bit of that.
exactly.
I don't think I have the patience for measuring, and also that involves math, and I do
Sure.
not understand math, so I feel like
Oh,
no,
yeah,
thank
that's
you.
rough. And anything with yeast, anything that
Oh my
like
God.
has a, if I'm like collaborating with another living organism,
Mhm.
it's got to be something predictable.
Yes, definitely agree. Well, moving on from math and measuring to the
Yeah.
Oscars, a couple years ago at the Oscars, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Can
Mm.
you talk a little bit about your time working on that film? Because as you can tell with Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket right here, I love that movie.
it was it was magical, and I have to say, like, my time with that, the awareness of Pinocchio goes way far back, because I remember like 2010, when I was still living in Los Angeles and I was working at Shadow Machine, and we had just finished Robot Chicken season 5, and word came down Guillermo del Toro wants to do stop motion feature film Pinocchio, and he wants to do it with Shadow Machine. And we were all just like, heads exploding, what? And we thought it was all going to start like next week, or something like that. So jump forward, 10 years, later,
Gosh.
we just thought, okay, well, maybe it's going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen. And then when it did, when he won the Oscar for The Shape of Water, and
Mhm.
Netflix, he got to pitch. He's like, now, now's the time. I can, say what I want to do. And so Netflix was one of the was the production company that said, yes, we want to make this. And we were working on Wendell and Wild, on what was basically, it was going to be like a proof of concept test, but wound up being a scene in the movie. And
Oh.
I was there at the Netflix animation studios, um, you know, and we heard Guillermo del Toro is here, and Henry's bringing him through for a tour because they're friends. And I was like, oh boy. So like, he came in, and I'm usually very, very cool when I talk to celebrities, because I don't want to, like, make them uncomfortable or
Right.
feel awkward. And I just was like, I'm not even going to try to act cool. I love you. I love your work. You mean so much to me. And he was just so gracious and wonderful. And I was working on this scene where there was this, big, complicated rig, moving with lots of dials and levers. And he was like, look at this. It's like this technology, these points of articulation. In Mexico, all we have is toothpicks and bubble gum.
Wow.
And I just happened to, like, on this rig, have like this piece of wadded up wax with a toothpick sticking out of it to measure part of my, animation. And I pointed at it and said, well, there's always room for toothpicks and bubble gum,
Oh my
and
gosh.
because there really is,
Mhm.
it's like it can be as high tech as you want, but sometimes the simplest things work just as well. And so he was so great and gracious. And then I ran into him a second time when I was coming up from Los Angeles to Portland to find a house to rent for my stay up here. And he was on the same plane coming
Oh
up
my
here
gosh.
to talk with people at Shadow Machine. So we met up in
Wow.
the airport at Portland, and, just like, well, just talking, and he was so excited. And I was excited to be working on my film. And he gave me a big old hug when we
Oh.
parted ways. He was like, this is a good omen. And I was like, yeah, it is. So then we did Wendell and Wild, and we finished a little bit before they did. So I was able to jump on to Pinocchio, which, was still had these, he was still coming up with new sequences
Mm.
and, stuff, which was great for all of us who wanted to be on the film. Um, because it just meant there was more work coming, and some of
Yeah.
their original animators had already signed contracts to go to their next jobs.
Mm.
And so there's a sequence late in the film when Pinocchio and Geppetto and the others are escaping from the dogfish, and they're like
Oh.
up on this lighthouse, and they're encouraging him to lie so his nose will grow into a tree that bridges the chasm, and they're all running across the tree. And that was the sequence that myself and a few other animators were finishing up kind of in the last days of that film. So it was so much animation had already been done. On my first day, I was able to watch the work cut, which was about 80% of the movie. And I was blown away. I was like, I was running out of the room like, this is incredible. This is just a beautiful piece of art.
Oh.
And everyone who had been on it for so long, was just exhausted and running on fumes. They were like, shut up, get out of my face with
Oh my
your
gosh.
new guy energy, but it was great. And he was, delightful. Of course, at that point, he was directing us through Zoom.
Mm.
And so, but it was just really nice to just get directions from him. He's very clear, but he's also very open to ideas. It wasn't like, he wasn't micromanaging every single thing. He
Oh, that's good.
likes, surprises, and it was just he's just so delighted by it.
Yeah.
And so it was just experiencing him at the different stages, was a lot of fun. And I've never been on a project that went from release to it won an Oscar. Well, it's the only thing I've worked on that won an Oscar, but just it seemed like that movie came out and then it won every single award and it won an Oscar, and it was like this amount of time.
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
some
so cool.
projects, like take years and years, for them to get out, just to get out the door.
Yeah.
But that was like, wow, so incredibly fast. And
Yeah.
because he had just done it, he knew, exactly how to be a great, ambassador for this film. And one of the things he kept saying and repeating over and over in his speech he did in Oscar speeches, just saying, animation is not a genre, it's a medium.
Mhm.
And you can go into any genre using this medium. And I just love that he said that. And I know he says it all the time,
Yeah.
but he was able to say it on such a prominent stage at
Right.
such a great moment. So hopefully some people were listening.
Yes, I definitely was listening. When he said that, I was so happy and I was like, oh, what a
Yeah.
perfect use of, an Oscar speech to get that message out there
Yes.
and spread that word. But speaking of the
Yes.
Oscars, this is crazy. So I honestly I don't know if this has ever happened before, but this year there are two stop motion films nominated for Best Animated Feature, right? Between
Yes.
Memoir of a Snail, which is so
Yes.
good, and then
Yeah.
Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul, which is also incredible. Um,
Yes.
I wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you know, first of all, if this has ever happened? Because I feel like it hasn't. And did you get a chance to
Mm.
see both of these movies?
I have not seen Memoir of a Snail yet, which I'm really
Okay.
looking forward to because I love Adam Elliott's work. We
Hmm.
had there was a screening here in Portland, which was held at the Portland Art Museum,
Oh, nice.
and we had the director from the film was here, and the whole room was animators. Because we have a ton of stop motion animators here in Portland working on various feature films. So it was them, and we had some of the animators from the film were there, and and I love Wallace and Gromit
Hmm.
forever. The short film that where we first meet Feathers McGraw,
Oh,
the wrong
yeah.
trousers,
Hmm.
like that was my introduction to Wallace and Gromit. And I
Yeah.
was like, whoa. So
Oh,
I think, I don't know that it's happened before that there were two. There may have been, it might have happened one other time. But it's always so good to see it happen because it really does drive home the point that when people see stop motion,
mhm.
they recognize the hand, the hard work that goes into it. Not that there isn't for all animated
Right.
films, but especially the craft and the patience that's
Mhm.
required for those films.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
yeah, hopefully they'll see some more.
Yes, for Wallace and Gromit, I got to go to like a special screening at Netflix, and the directors were there. But what
Oh,
was even cooler was they brought Feathers McGraw, they brought Wallace, they brought
yeah.
Gromit, and they brought Norbot, the little garden gnome.
Yes.
And I went up to the security lady because there was like a security guard standing right next to him. I was like, "Am I allowed to
Sure.
stand behind the table and take a picture with them?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah." So I got a picture of me with Wallace
Oh,
and Gromit and Norbot and Feathers McGraw, and it's like one of my favorite pictures ever now because they're just so cute.
yes.
And I got to like look at them up close. You could see the little fingerprints and everything. So it's like you
Yes.
can just tell how much work goes into creating these characters, and
Yeah.
such a cool
Yeah.
experience. So I love both those movies. I can't wait for you to see Memoir of a Snail because that movie it
Mm,
is completely unlike what I expected. It's
mm,
a, a lot more adult and a lot more like
yes.
R-rated. I don't know if it is rated R, but there's some stuff in there that I
Mm.
was like really surprised to see, but I loved it. I thought it was just such a unique film, so I think you'll really enjoy that one as
I
well.
can't wait. I cannot wait.
Oh my gosh. Well, Michael, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to be here with me today. I really appreciate it. Where would be a good place for people to follow you and keep up with all the other upcoming projects that you have?
Well, I've really sort of like focused all my attention sort of onto Instagram because most of what I do is like photographic. You know, one of the things is like it's hard to describe stop motion even to people
Yeah.
who do stop motion, but you can look at it and you can grasp it fairly easily. So it's kind of Instagram for me, and I'm just at Michael Granberry. It's just my name. I try to be easy to find. But yes, you can follow me on there and you can see stuff from the past that I've been working on, occasionally things that I'm working on right now if I'm not covered with an NDA, which is
Yep.
mostly my own personal stuff. But and a lot of people reach out to me through that, so it's a great place. I love meeting new artists and animators and directors and musicians, and it's just been a pretty happy experience so far.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you, Michael, so much. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.